Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Joint Commission on Public Ethics. The meeting is now called to order. As with all JCOPE meetings being held at this time, we are using video conferencing technology. Public session of this meeting is accessible on JCOPE's website to watch via live streaming. A couple of important reminders. It is important that only one person speak at a time. In addition, I ask that when you speak, you identify yourself so that we have a clear record. Please also remember to mute your phone when you are not speaking. Mr. Levine, do we have a quorum?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. The second item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes of the commission. They are behind your attachment A. These are the minutes of the public session of the June 29th, 2021 meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Weissman, this is not a correction to the minutes. This is something for the to note for the public session that on the bottom of page 6, Commissioner DePiero indicated that January 2019 was her first meeting, but according to the minutes of July 31st, 2018, Commissioner DePiero, that was her first meeting. So I'd just like that noted for the record, and if there's nothing else, I'd like to move the minutes.
We have one small correction as well. On page 8, line 5, it should say Chair Varlak at the beginning of the sentence instead of Commissioner. It's just a...
Okay. Thank you. Don't see any other changes. I've got a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second it. Deering.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Count 3 in Albany, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's unanimous, ma'am.
Thank you. Let's move on to item 3 on the agenda, report from staff. Judge Berlin.
Yes, Chair and Commissioners, the operations update is attachment B to the report. It has been an active period for the Commission and staff. If there are any questions, staff is here available to respond to them concerning the operations report. But again, it has been a busy period. I would add that in addition to the operations matters, the Buffalo office is scheduled to move to its new location last weekend in July. We are still on track in New York to move to the new offices in September. I would add that, as you know, staff has been working primarily from home during the pandemic with a core group here in Albany coming in on a regular basis, on a daily basis. We are preparing a plan for return to in-person operations on a more complete basis beginning in September. We're working on safety protocols for that, looking at various state protocols that have been developed, and we will have those available to talk about if there are any questions in the September meeting. In addition, we have begun or continued really outreach to interested communities. We have met recently with the new president of the New York State Bar Association to discuss ways in which we can collaborate in providing guidance to the membership. And we are planning to continue to have meetings with the regulated community going forward. We are finalizing. Was there a question? We are finalizing the Spring-Summer 2021 newsletter, and we're hoping to publish that shortly. And we are also in the planning stages for a fall continuing legal education program with the Center for New York City Law at the New York Law School. We're very much looking forward to that. But if there are no questions, that is the operations update.
Thank you, Judge. Not seeing any questions, so we will move on to item 4, which is report from the committees. Judge Berlin, can you please present the report from the confidentiality and records?
Can I ask one question?
Yes, Judge Jacobs.
Of the executive director. I'm looking at the operations update, and it says there are 3,800 failure to file notices issued, and I guess 21,000 submitted. Does that mean something like 15% of the people who are required to file have not timely filed?
That is what the data indicates at the present time, and my understanding, but if you'd like to pursue it further, we can discuss it. My understanding is that that's not an unusual situation. We do follow up, and we can talk more about that later in the meeting. There is follow-up with those who have, for one reason or another, failed to file. There's a process.
All right, I can wait.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have a question, too.
Yes, Judge Braun.
Under training, number of individuals training as of May 2021, year to date, 1,000.
I'm going to ask you to hold on. And I'm going to ask anyone who's not currently speaking to mute their line. Okay, Judge, could you start over, please?
Sure. Under training, it says number of individuals overdue for ethics training as of May 13, 2021. Year to date, 1,751. What's happening to those individuals?
Judge, if you want, I can take this. This is Monica.
Yes, please.
Anybody? Always happy to hear from you, Monica.
So that is a cumulative number that is outstanding over time, and we have a routine compliance program where people are notified that they have to catch up on their training. As you may be aware, there is no penalty in the statute for not completing your training, but we work closely with the ethics offices of each of the agencies and have a system where we notify the individuals that they need to get their training. And actually, this number is steadily decreasing. So we're seeing progress there, but it's consistently, this is the number, and again, it's cumulative over time.
Though there's no penalty, why, now that it's over 2 months later, why is it still such a large number? Whatever the number may be.
This is training. It's not 2 months later. People take training throughout their career, and so this isn't as of a particular date. This is as of the entire. The entirety of JACOB. This is how many people are outstanding in their training, and so the training staff is working through it. But there's no set date when people have to take training. It varies per individual when they have to take their training. And obviously during COVID, these numbers increased substantially because there weren't as many trainings and people are out of the office.
There's no set date for everybody in general, but there's individual set dates for each person, right?
Correct. Yes.
So are some of those people actually overdue for the individual dates by which they must take their training?
Exactly. That's this list. Yes.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Monica. Any other questions?
Thank you, Judge Braun. Are there any additional questions? Okay, well, I'm noting that it appears the Commissioner Horowitz dropped off the call. I'm not sure if he's having technical challenges. Moving to item 4 on the agenda, Judge Berlin, can you please present the report from the Confidentiality and Records Access?
Yes, the Confidentiality and Records Access Committee met a number of times since our last meeting, among other things, to address the proposed record access regulations, as well as the meeting of the various confidentiality provisions in Section 94 of the Executive Law, and the need of JACOB and the agency's current protocols to protect confidentiality. With respect to the latter, we plan to reconvene the committee to continue to address those topics. With respect to the proposed records access regulations, those are changes to Part 937 of Title 19 of NYCRR. The notice and comment period for the proposed regulations ended yesterday. We had previously received 2 letters from reInvent Albany, which had been submitted for itself and a number of other civic groups recommending changes in the proposed record access regulations. We have received nothing from any other groups through the close of the rulemaking. But the first of the reInvent Albany proposals was to make the log of requests for access to records of the agency also available to requesters. The second was to post all FDS filings for individuals directly appointed by the governor or other elected officials, such as members of state boards and commissions, agency commissioners, and other senior officials or directors, available online on the commission's website. Staff has prepared a proposal that would have us create a records access request log, and that log would be available as well upon request for disclosure, beginning in January of 2022. That proposal has been circulated to the commissioners. In staff's view, if the commission is inclined to pursue that proposal, it would require another 45-day notice and comment period. With respect to the second proposal that was made by reInvent Albany and the other groups, to post all of the FDSs for a somewhat amorphous group, but a much larger group than we're currently dictated by statute. We believe there are legal impediments to that under the statutes that we enforce, which call for a defined group of FDS filings to be posted online and not others. And we believe in order to pursue that, if the commission is so inclined, we would need to propose legislation be adopted in the state authorizing us to do so. If there are questions on the legal analysis, we can address those in executive session. But at this point, we have the comments that are in, and the regulations as proposed are ripe for consideration now, those that have gone out and been noticed. Or, as I say, if the commissioners are inclined to go with the further proposal, which would provide for the creation of, among other things, for the creation of a record access log, which would then be available upon request, then we would need another 45-day notice and comment period. Are there any questions?
Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. May I inquire as to the status of a proposal that has been pending for an extended period regarding disclosure of inquiries to review FDSs?
Well, let me say that what staff has drafted and circulated to the commissioners, Commissioner Levine, is a proposal that would provide that all requests would be logged by date, identity of the requester, materials requested, materials provided, and then that log would be available to anyone under our record access regulations. So
as I understand the proposal, that the log would indicate who had made a request for a specific filer's FDS, and if the filer wanted to ascertain if any inquiry had been made to review his or her filing, then the log would indicate who made the request for a review?
That's absolutely correct. It would indicate who had requested it, when they had requested it, what they had requested. In your example, it would be an FDS of a particular individual. It could be the FDS of the requester, as well as the materials provided in response to the request.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Mr. Levine, are there any additional questions?
Current practice. Do we log these things? Do we have a record of them today? If so, who maintains it? Where is it?
Judge Berlin, do you want me to take this?
Yes, if you would. Thank you.
Sure. So, Commissioner Jacob, we do currently maintain a log. Walt handles the public information request under the current regulations, and he maintains a record of the requests that are made. It includes contact information and other information. And so the proposal is that the log would instead would not include that kind of information and would just include the requester, their connection, whatever entity they're connected with, the information they requested, and the nature of the response. So this would be what would become the log that would be made publicly available.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Okay. Seeing none, Judge Berlin, General Counsel Sam, what are our next steps here?
We would need a motion if the commission wants to move forward on the change recommended by reInvent Albany, which has been incorporated into the draft that was circulated. Then we need a motion to move forward with the rulemaking to incorporate that change. If the commission doesn't want to make that change, then we just need a motion to adopt the regs. They're ready to be finalized.
Do we have a motion? I do not see any hands at this time.
Let me just add,
I'll make the motion to extend it for 45 days with the additional paragraph suggested by reInvent Albany.
Thank you.
I second that motion.
Thank you. We've got a motion and a second. Is there any additional conversation on the motion? I'm sorry, Commissioner Cohen, did you have your hand up? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. With that, all in favor, please raise your hand.
You see two in Albany. Hysterical. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Commissioner Horowitz, I can't tell if your hand is up or down. Okay, so that's 8 in favor. You want to call?
I couldn't see Commissioner McCarthy.
He's in favor. Were there commissioners opposed? I see 1, 2, 2 opposed. So, any abstentions? And what did I miss here?
I didn't see Commissioner Cohen. Commissioner Cohen, are you voting in favor or opposed? You can do a thumbs up or down. Thumbs up or down? I have 12.
Okay,
No, yeah, don't you have 12? 3 in Albany?
2 in Albany.
Oh, 2 in Albany?
Chair Varlack,
Okay,
how are you
I
voting?
missed something.
Madam
I'm sorry,
Chair,
Martin? Yes.
I didn't catch. Against, there we go, there's your 12, we're good. Thank you. It's 8-4, motion carries.
Anything else on this topic before we move on to the report of the Rules and Protocol Committee?
Let me just add that with respect to the legislative proposal, if there is one, in staff's view, not only would we need legislation authorizing us to expand the range of financial disclosure statements that we could post on the website, we would also need an additional budgetary allocation to handle the need to create the vehicle on the website, as well as to process what would be a larger and perhaps significantly larger, once defined, once that group of FDSs is defined, in order to get them up with necessary redactions made. So I just want to make that clear. I don't know what the sense of the body is with respect to incorporating such a proposal or suggestion in our legislative recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Judge Berlin. Moving on to the report of the Rules and Protocol Committee. The committee convened last week to discuss preferred matters. It has made progress on drafting proposed rules of order to improve the efficiency and productivity of meetings. The rules are mostly aspirational. The committee plans to circulate a draft to the full commission for review and discussion well in advance of the September meeting. With respect to the topic of recording the executive session, this was referred to the Rules Committee by vote of the commission at the May meeting. The committee discussed this topic and had additional questions for staff, which they are looking into. Are there any questions with respect to that report?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Commissioner Hine.
As I understand it, that transcription was being made of the video of the public session, at least since the governor's executive order amending protocols for conducting meetings. And that further, the commission has never recorded the meeting of the executive sessions, which includes the subset of the so-called closed sessions. Do I understand correctly that there was no transcript of the last public session meeting?
That is,
Sure,
that is correct.
I can take this.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Judge.
Yeah, that is correct. Under the protocols in place, while the pandemic regulations were in force, we were preparing a transcript. But now that we've reverted to usual procedure, it has not historically been the practice of the commission to prepare a separate transcript. The recording of the session is posted, the public session is posted online, so that is available, and it's publicly available.
Madam Chair, I have a motion to make on the subject if this is the appropriate juncture.
So I do believe, depending on the follow-up discussion to what I believe is your proposed motion, and I'll ask you to go ahead and make it, that it may be more appropriate for a discussion in executive session, and we can certainly have that discussion today. But if you'd like to make your motion, we can confirm that it would be more appropriate, we can move forward that way.
Thank you. The motion has 3 components. I move, 1, that we renew the practice of transcribing the video of each public session. 2, that the executive session, including the closed session subsets, be transcribed and circulated to the commissioners if they request. And third component of the motion is that motions that fail in the executive session be reported in the public session.
Okay. Just one clarification, Commissioner Levine, with respect to number 2, the transcription of the executive and closed session, did you also want that to be reported?
Well, if I understand your question correctly, Madam Chair, what I'm proposing is that the transcription of the executive session, including the subset of a closed session, be transcribed. I'm not proposing that that be divulged to the public.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Weissman. Is there, yes, General Constance?
So, Chair, I just, Commissioner Levine's proposal raises legal concerns under the statute and the executive law, as did his prior proposal to both record and transcribe executive sessions. And we've discussed this with the Rules and Protocol Committee, and we're continuing to work on this, but it raises legal issues that I recommend the Commission discuss in executive session. I won't discuss the legal concerns in the public session.
Commissioner Levine, would you be willing to table your motion until today's executive session?
Can you hear me, Madam Chair? Yes.
I thank you. Thank you very much.
Can I raise one question about the rules that you're moving on?
Yes, Commissioner.
In the 4 or 5 years I've been on the commission, I've served on about, 4 or 5 subcommittees. The executive director search committee, 2 litigation committees, the rules committee, the confidentiality committee. It's always been my practice whenever I served in a subcommittee to reach out to members who are not, other commission members who were not on the subcommittee, to ask their opinion, to keep them up to date, to get feedback, so that whenever I went into a subcommittee meeting, I knew I had vetted whatever we were doing with other commission members, so they'd be fully informed and kept up to date. I just want to clarify, I think that is your intent with the Rules Committee, but I just want to clarify that there's nothing confidential or secret or that's kept from any of the commission members, even though you do have a subcommittee that meets.
That is correct.
I've never received one of those calls.
Well, I'm sorry. I just want to clarify. There might be things that are confidential as in not public that the committees may discuss, but there's nothing confidential from other commissioners.
I'm only talking about conversations between members of the commission.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that clarification. Moving on to...
I didn't hear your answer. Was it yes?
I said yes. Yes. Any other questions before we move on to new and other business? Okay. So that's item 5 on the agenda is for other business. Is there any before the commission?
May I, Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Levine.
I have a motion on the question and the matter of the breach of confidentiality that occurred after the January 2019 meeting. I will preface the motion by saying it's plausible, if not likely, that the January 29, 2019 leak was a culmination of a series of leaks to the executive chamber, probably from the commission's inception. If so, it's perversely ironic, given that the Commission on Public Integrity was discredited and then abolished in large part because of its refusal to self-police leaking for the executive chain. I therefore move that the executive director be instructed to make a referral to the Attorney General with respect to the breach of confidentiality that occurred at the meeting of January 2019, and that the ambit be expanded to include any other potential leaks that have occurred prior to the leak of January 2019.
Thank you, Commissioner Levine. Before we get a second on this motion, I will opine here that I believe that this motion and the related discussion, if there is a second, is more appropriately handled in executive session, and I am, of course, happy to do so at today's meeting. So I would ask you, Commissioner Levine, if you'd be willing to move the discussion of this motion to executive session.
Well, if you'll indulge me, Madam Chair, I will respond to your question with a question. If the discussion is had in the executive session, will you report how each commissioner voted on the motion in the public session?
General Counsel Stan, would that be permitted under our rules?
No, if the vote takes place in executive session, then you can't disclose it in the public session. But you could have a discussion in executive session and then subsequently take the matter up in public session to have the vote, depending on the nature of the motion after the discussion. So as long as the motion and the vote are not about a confidential matter, it could take place in the public session.
Well, following on Madam General Counsel's opinion, I'm sure, would you accede to the approach that we have the discussion in the executive session and the vote in the public session?
I have no objection to that, as long as this council agrees that the ultimate vote can take place in public session. I'm fine with that.
All right, well, I'm agreeable to that protocol.
Thank you.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
Being on the Confidentiality Committee, I think the general rule that we've followed has been that if something is going to be made public that occurred in the executive session, it needs to be done by a majority vote of the commission. So this is a question to Monica. Monica, when you said that there could be a decision that there be a public announcement of what the vote is, if that's determined in the executive session, does that mean it would require a majority vote, 8 commissioners in the executive session to agree that the vote could be publicly announced?
No, I just want to clarify, that's not what I said. I said the discussion about the matter could take place in the executive session, so to the extent that commissioners wanted to discuss potential confidential information or legal issues, but if then Commissioner Levine wants to proceed with the vote that the motion he just made, he could return to public session and make that motion, and the vote would take place in public session.
And that would not.
Discussion could take place.
And that would not require a majority vote of the commission to agree to that. It could just be a motion made by Gary, and it would be a public motion.
Right. What I'm saying is the fact that there is some related discussion in the executive session doesn't make the matter in of itself confidential. But the discussions that take place would be confidential. And so we could adjourn, move into executive session, discuss legal questions and any confidential issues, and then subsequent to that, when we return to public session, Gary can make the motion he just made, and the commission could vote on it in the public session.
And that would be his decision, not the commission's decision.
Right. The commission could choose to not vote on it. Depending on how he phrases the motion, and again, this will relate to some of what takes place in the executive session discussion, there are certain motions he could make that would be improper in the public session. And so far, we haven't crossed that line yet that I can tell, but I think there has to be discussion in the executive session about this, and then Commissioner Levine can determine how he wants to proceed. What I'm saying is that you can't release a vote that takes place in executive session. The vote would have to take place in public session.
I just want to be clear about this. I'm trying to preserve for Gary Gary, I'm trying to protect your interest here.
Thank you.
I'm trying to, when he comes out of the executive session and makes the motion, if someone were to say, wait a minute, don't make this motion in a public session, would it require a majority vote on a motion then at that point before Gary could make his motion? Or is Gary be assured that he can make his motion publicly without a second vote, maybe abnegating that right?
That's what the motion is.
I don't think that Commissioner Levine needs a vote to make his motion.
Okay, I just want to make sure
Okay,
he gets.
I have legal concerns about the motion. We'll discuss them, and then commissioners will be, advised, and commissioners can do what they choose to do if Commissioner Levine makes the motion in the public session. But it doesn't require a vote of the commission for Commissioner Levine to make his motion in the public session.
The reason I have an interest in pursuing this, and I hate to be so particular about it, is I favor the idea, the concept that the vote on this issue be public. And I don't want it somehow or other to get encrusted or folded and then hidden because of the fact that there's some later vote that occurs.
Based upon what I'm hearing from General Counsel Sam, I think, and just so that we're all clear, you're going to move it. We will move into executive session. We will have the conversation there, and then we will come back out of executive session when we're done, and then Commissioner Levine can renew his motion, and it can be voted upon. There does not need to be a preemptory vote on whether or not he can make the vote. He can make the motion in public session before the vote. Is that right, General Counsel Stan?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Well, if I may, it appears that Commissioner Jacob wanted to speak. I'll defer to him for the moment.
I was just going to ask a question on timing. We're going to do that today, I assume.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may follow up, Madam Chair, with Madam General Counsel on this general topic of discussion in executive session and voting in the public session. May I pose a question?
Yes, Commissioner Levine. I would just note that we do have, I don't know if we have any other items for new and other business, but I will note that we have a pretty full agenda today, but please proceed.
Thank you. The staff took the position with respect to approval of outside activity applications prior to the last resolution adopted by the Commission with respect to delegation of authority, that the staff could render these approvals without a vote of the Commission. Could you clarify if it is the view of staff that the Commission cannot void an approval granted for outside activity by staff? And could that motion be made in the public session?
So, as I've said repeatedly, it wasn't staff's interpretation of that it had the ability to do outside activities. The Commission was very well aware that the staff was doing outside activity approvals since the moment I got here, beginning in 2012. And but as to whether or not the Commission could overrule determination that staff previously made, we've discussed that. Certainly going forward, that is the case. We've discussed this at length, that should the Commission choose to do so, it should be prospective only, as individuals have relied on the advice that staff has given. As to whether or not it can be done in the public session, the answer is, under the law, no. The law says that guidance provided under 9416 is confidential. Discussions about any particular guidance that was provided must be discussed in the executive session, and it is confidential by law.
Thank you, General Counsel Sam. Is there any other new or other business?
Well,
yes, Yes, Commissioner Weissman?
I just have a quick question for General Counsel Stam. I agree with everything you said. My only question is, in the event that there were misrepresentations or other issues related to the approval staff gave, that ran afoul of that approval, does the commission then retain the right to, if it's done in executive session, to rescind the approval?
I think there would have to be discussions about the specific facts and circumstances, but you are correct, and my statement earlier was a little bit overgeneralized, that any guidance staff gives is based on an express statement that staff has relied on the representations made by the individual requesting the guidance. So then if it turns out that one of the representations is not accurate, there would be discussions about how to move forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
But I would prefer that yes, okay, great, thanks.
Commissioner Levine, did you have an additional item?
No, Madam Chair, thank you.
Oh. Is there any other new or other business? Okay. Seeing no hands, at this time, may I please have a motion to move into executive session pursuant to Executive Law, Section 9419B?
I'll move during.
Can I have a second? Thank you. All in favor?
3 in Albany, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's unanimous, ma'am.
Thank you. Walt, can you please let us know when we're in executive session?
Stand by.
Sorry, you can be heard.
We're back in public session.
I'm sorry, Walt, are we back in public session?
Yes.
Thank you. General Counsel Sam, can you please report out on the actions taken in executive session?
The commission discussed litigation matters. The commission approved 2 informal letter opinions pursuant to Executive Law 9416. The commission approved 1 advisory opinion pursuant to Executive Law 9416. The commission commenced 2 substantial basis investigations. The commission authorized steps in several investigative matters and discussed several other investigative matters.
Thank you. Judge Braun, I understand.
I'd just like to ask, although I think I know, what's the date of the next official meeting?
I believe it is September 14th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Levine?
do I understand correctly that we no longer have a quorum to transact business in this public session, correct?
That is correct.
Therefore, I will urge upon you, and I will ask other commissioners for a special meeting to be conducted prior to the next previously scheduled meeting. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.